All right, so this week we're going to go to the next stage in Pardes. We're going to look at the Ramaz, Rav Mordechai ben Rav Moshe. No, it's Rav Moshe ben Rav Mordechai Zakuto. Before we do, I just want to take a quick look at a gra that you really sort of ties a couple of ideas together. So the pasuk in Mishlei says emes k'nei. Acquire emes v'al core, don't sell it. Chachma u'mosor bina. So the Gra says emes ki b'torah yesh daled chalakim. So here's a quick thought: is that when we read the pasuk, that pasuk does not say pardes to me. Like I don't see, we see chachma musar bina. This is what we talked about earlier, right? But I don't see anything about there that really jumps out at me that says this is about pardes. But here's the Gra, who says right away, Ki b'Torah yesh daled chalakim v'heim pardes. U'parshtei Torah yadu l'kol. The pshat level is accessible to anybody. Aval haradas, when you talk about remez, drosh, and sod, liyadam l'hasigam tzarich yegia. At those three levels, that requires a lot more effort, right? K'moshe kasav, ladas chachma u'musar, lahavin imre bina, which is another pasuk in Mishlei. And it says, V'hem gimel hanal, these three other levels, upashti Torah hem nikroim emes. But when we talk about the pashtus of Torah, that's called emes, which is interesting because when we see others, I think the Ramaz himself uses the term emes, the Ramban and his Perush on Chumash, when he uses the term emes, they're talking about Inyane Kabbalah, right? But here, the Gra says, in our pasuk, emes kanei, emes means the pashtus of Torah, ki ein mikra yotze midei pshuto, because the pashtus is where everything starts. Ubehem nizlabe sharadas, and the pashtus of the Inyan becomes almost like a container that is dressed, that that everything else, sort of the remez, the drash, and the sod can sort of hang off of. The hakol lekavonas hapashut. Mikuvin ze mulze v'ze shneimar emes afshehu pashut ve'ena tatzarich liyoga b'havanaso v'gam yadua l'kol adam mikol makom knei v'chachma u'musar ubina, but you still have to acquire chachma u'musar ubina v'hemer das. Those the chachma u'musar ubina, that's already the remez, drash, and sod level in the way the pasuk is. He understands the pasuk. So you have to really work to get Chachma Musar Bina, but at the same time, that's the Kanei, but at the same time, Timkor, he says. You can't sell it. Usually most things in life, you work hard at something, you can sell it as a service or a product or something else, right? But when it comes to Torah, no, that has to remain open for anyone, and that's the idea of rabbeim and shiurim and such, that those always have to be open and free to the masses. That's the Timkor. So I wanted to start with that. I think it was a beautiful gra that where he can pull out pardes even in a pasuk that doesn't seem to be having anything to do with pardes. So let's jump into the Ramaz though. And we're going to see a little bit more, I think, of an insight into what are these four different levels. How do we understand them? How do we apply them? So he starts out by saying, and the Ramaz, by the way, he was a great Gadol Torah that lived in Italy. I want to say the 17th or 18th century. So he starts off by saying, and he has a Perush, by the way. This is his Perush on Zohar. So this is not at the Nister level, so this is probably one of the few shtickle that we can pull out of his Perush on the Zohar that's not that we can actually understand. So he says, "Ki hinei b'chol echad medaled shel pardes yesh pardes." There is pardes within pardes. So what does that mean? So it says derech mashal hanoto lulav. Right, it's on Sukkot. You take your lulav and esrog umekavin la'atzor tlalim ro'im. Zehu pshat. The pshat when we shake lulav and esrog is that, and we do it in all six directions, is that we want to prevent, we're davening to Hashem, that we prevent anything bad from happening to us. Like the lulav is some form of a protection. That's the pshat level of why we shake lulav and esrog. Okay. So then he says, Yikavin shalulav remez l'chol haTorah, but then you could be thinking about, as you're shaking lulav, that the lulav itself is a remez to kol haTorah kula. Why? Shemitchilas bebeis mistayem is belamed, because the Torah starts Bereishis, the psukim. Bereishis bara Elokim. It starts with a beis, and what's the last pasuk in the Torah? It's in V'zos Bracho l'chol hayad hachazaka l'chol hamor hagado asher asa Moshe le'enei kol Yisrael. It's a lamed, so it starts with a beis, ends with the lamed. So there's your mistayemis bilam is zehu lav de lulav. So we have lamed beis in our lulav. Now v'shar hamikra mitchilas bevav vayihi achrei mos, right? Vayihi achrei mos Moshe is how Sefer Yehoshua starts, and how does it end? At the end of Divrei Hayamim Beis B'Yerushalayim Asher B'Yehuda Mibachem B'Chol Imo Hashem Elokav Imo Vayal. The last word is Vayal. So Mistayem is Belamed Vayal. So here we starts with a Vav and we end with a Lamed Shehu Lamed Vav de Lulav. So Lamed Beis Lamed Vav incorporates the Torah and Vim and Ksuvim. So derech remez. So alpi remez of this, you can think about when you're shaking lulav and esrog that lulav is keneged kol Torah kula. All right, that's the remez level. Omishakav in the Midrash result al lulav hu derech hadrash. Now, when you're shaking, if you also are thinking about all the different midrashim that they talk about, right? That the lulav and esrog is keneged the different parts of the body, right? The lips, the eyes, the heart, the spine, right? that's derech drash. Or that it's keneged the different types of people in Klal Yisrael, right? That those have mitzvahs and ma'asim tovim, those who don't, etc. So if you're mekavin to all of those different things, then that's now you're at the drash level. Again, of shaking the lulav, v'yesh mala leva hasod, and then you could also go to the sod level. Hari pardes, let's see maisa, and this is how pardes can become part of the actual maisa of you're doing of shaking lulav and esrog. Ve'hein hein daled darche pardes upshat. That is the 4 different ways of understanding pardes within pshat. So in the pshat level, that's pardes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The nice mushal. So we're going to keep going, though. We're not stopping there. Okay, so now we have a good example of understanding pardes within pshat. So he says, yesh pardes l'derech remez. So now we're going to do the same exercise, but at the remez level. So he says, kagon, kadosh yihiyed nazir. So the pasuk by Nazir, we have to do a little bit of that's the work we have with the Ramaz here, is that we have to do a lot of work. He says things in a very concise form, and we have to unpack it. Okay, so by Naziros, it says in the pasuk about Mibar Koyeme Neder Nizrael Terlo Yavar Arosho Adnalos Hayamim Asher Yazir Lashem. These are what you cannot do until the days of your Naziros are completed. Right, because you make a neder to do it. So it says, Kodesh Yihiyeh, you will be Kodesh. Okay, so that's the operative phrase. So when it says Kagon, the Kodesh Yihiyeh de Nazir, there's a Gemara in Tainis that says, V'Nazir Gufei Min Nolan, Amar of Masna, Stam Naziros Shloshim Yom. If you make a neder, I am going to be a Nazir, and you don't specify an amount of time, Stam Naziros is 30 days. How do we know this? Minolan. Amar Kra Yihiyah. As we said, Kodesh Yihiyah, right? You will be Kodesh. So Yihiyah is Gematria Tlasin Havi. That's in the Gematria 30. Because the Yud and then a Hey, so that's 10 and then 5 is 15, and then double it with another Yud and another Hey, and you've got 30. So when we say Kodesh Yihiyah de Nazir, so Shepshat also Remez Yore al Shloshim Yom de Nazirus. So very interesting. We are learning out Psak Halacha at the Remez level, right? That's the Pshat within the Remez. The Remez is that Yihi has a gematria of 30. And now at the Pshat level of understanding that's telling me that Stam Naziros is 30 days. And we actually pasuk it, right? That's actually Psak Halacha. So it's interesting. We're actually learning it from from the Remez. We can learn at the Pshat level. That's the halacha. Okay. So Viremez de Avraham Hayo Yihiyeh Shemisparo Ramez L'Shloshim Tzadikim. Again, we're going to go down and look at a midrash to understand what this next one is. So the midrash Tanchuma in Parshas Miketz says, "Vayar Yaakov ki yesh shever b'Mitzrayim, ze she'amar akasuv, nar hayisi gam zakanti v'lo ra'isi tzadik ne'ezah." Right, the famous pasuk in Tehillim. But we're going to see a very different way of understanding it. V'zar mevakesh lachem. So it says, "Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman, pasuk ze sar ha'olam amru." So the Sar HaOlam, I'm not sure who that is, but whoever is the Sar HaOlam, he said, Nar Hayisi, Miyamos Adam. I have been around, right, forever. I'm the Sar HaOlam. From the days of Adam Arishon, V'gam Zakanti, Ad Yemos Mashiach. So from the time I was young, the days of Adam Arishon, all the way until the end of days, V'gam Zakanti, right? V'lo Ra'isi, Sha'azav V'gadosh Baruch Hu Es HaOlam Min HaTzadikim. What does it mean? Tzadik lo ne'azav. It means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has never left and never will leave the world without tzadikim. Ela shebechol dor v'dor ma'ami tzadikim da'amar Rabbi Tanchum b'shem Rabbi Acha ein ha'olam chaser shloshim tzadikim ke'Avraham. Shnei amar v'Avram hayo yihiyeh l'goy gadol. That we have another Maimer Chazal that the world will never have 30, will never be lacking 30 tzadikim like Avraham. As it says by Avraham, Hayo Yihiyeh L'Goy Gadol. Okay, so here we have a remez of, again, Hayo Yihiyeh, the word Yihiyeh, again, we can darshan out or pull out the remez, right? This is the remez level, that's 30, and that's the 30 tzadikim, who remez, show remez, and that's now at the remez level of the remez. That within Yihiyeh we have 30, and that we know that that's going to mean that actually means that there will never be a lacking of 30 tzadikim in the world at any time. Okay, that's remez and the remez. The whole hagematria shetimsa beparshas nesim. So now the next level is, what about the parshas nesim in parshas naso? Where all the Nasim brought their korbanos, and it says Mizrak Echod Kesef. So every one of them, we see that term repeated, Mizrak Echod Kesef. Gemat, that's what's the gematria of those three words? Tuf Kuf Chof, 520. Shenidrash al Noach. So go back again. That's what that means. All right. So Midrash Agada b'Midbar Perek Zayin. Davar Acher Mizrak Echod Kesef. Ola cheshbono tuf kuf chof shana, that this is actually teaching us the cheshbon of 520 years. Keneged shnosav shel Noach, shahayu ben tuf kuf shana. So this is regarding Noach, that he was 500 years old. Shnei amar vayi Noach ben chomesh meyo shana. So he was 500 years old. The pasuk tells us when Shem, Cham, and Yafes were born. V'osa Shana Amar Lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kates Kol Basar Balafanai. And he said at that point that the Mabul is coming. Ve'ein anu motzim miyom shehischel ve'emid todos ad hamabul elamei shana. But in terms of them standing down and not having any other children, that we know that it ended. We have a cheshbon of that of another 100 years. Shenamar v'Noach ben sheish meyos shana v'ham mabul. So the mabul ceased when he was 600 years old, and that's when we know that they were able to have children again. Okay, the Arshem esrim shana. So we're missing 20 years. So we know that 500 years. We have 600 years. So the difference between them is 100 years. We don't have. What is this? Why is the cheshbon of taf kuf chof? Where's the extra 20 years from? That we can understand that there was a gezerah even before the 500 years to give us an extra 20 years that when it was actually nigzer. So what the Ramah says is that gematria shetimsa beparshas nesim Mizrak Echod Kesef gematria taf kuf chaf shenidrash al Noach ein sham hu drash haremes. So understanding this, that whole cheshbon, that operates at the drosh of the remez. So we have the remez, which gives us the gematria, but then being able to dorish, where's that extra 20 years come from? That's already at the drosh level, drosh within the remez. Okay. Then he says, V'cho darke gnat, the gematria, notrikun, and tmura. So now the next level is, anytime we're talking about gematria, notrikun, meaning like acronyms, tmura is when you're starting to flip things around, like they call it atbesh, right? That an aleph becomes a tuf, a beis becomes a shin, etc. That's tmura. So any of those, shem al derech hasod, who sod haremez. Once you're doing that at the remez level, you're already at the sod of the remez level. Okay, so that's remez. V'gam yesh pardes hadrash, and even at the drosh level, we can have pardes. Pshat hadrash hu al derech bereshis, ein reshis el Yisrael v'Torah. So the Torah starts off bereshis bara Elokim, and second Rashi himself is this is very famous, right? I think we're all familiar with this. It says ein hamikra hazeh omer ela darsheni, right? That this is the language itself is problematic, because what does bereshis mean? It really should have said barishona. I think the Rabbeinu Bechaya says that it's just difficult to understand at a pshat level what is bereshis bara Elokim. And Rashi says that this is just asking to be darshaned. It says Kamosha Darshu Rabasinu Bishvil HaTorah, right? What does it mean? Bereshis. It means Bishvil HaTorah Shenikra Reshis. So that's one drash. Or as he says, Bereshis Ein Reshis Eli Yisrael VaTorah. So once you're having to darshan it out, just to understand pshat, that is pshat level within drash. Okay. V'remez hadrash hu kol hagematria v'notrikot shemevi arav ba'oturim l'rmoz l'drushi razal. Right, the ba'oturim in his perush on Chumash all throughout give all kinds of gematrias and nutrikun for everything. That already is at the remez level of drash. Right, he's being doresh the pasuk and he's using remazim to do that. That's the remez of the drash. Okay. Drosh kagon esin v'gamin shenizrashim l'ribuyim. Right, when it says v'gam something or es something, we can have a riboy. The kol riboy nidrash linyano, and everything is right. It's a riboy that we learn out something from from the Indian of the pasuk. So es Hashem elokecha tira l'rabus tomidi chachamim. Right, when it says es Hashem elokecha tira, you have to fear God. What's the yes? The yes is a riboy. But it's within the Indian of being fearful of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so that we say l'rabos talmidei chachamim, similar to being fearful of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You have to have yira of a talmid chacham. V'chein kol al tikre be'atzmo hu drasha. Right, and every time it says al tikre this ela this, right, we say v'chol right at the end of ein kelokenu, and all the way at the end, right, we say. That al tikre bonayich elo bonayich, right? Those types of things. Anytime it says that, those are drashos. In a drasha who drash hadrash, and now it's a drash of the drash because I'm using that drash to learn something out that's a little bit different. It has to somehow connect to the Indian, but it's a new thing altogether, right? So that is a drash level within the drash. Okay, v'soda drasha. So then we have the sod level within the drash. That's derech emes, meaning that's already at the nister level. That's anything that's all the midrashim that are at the nister level, that are hidden from most of us. Besod yesh pshat. And now at the sod level, there is even pshat at the sod level. Shu asvaras hasodas ba'olam hazeh lasbiram lafi koach hadimyan v'seich v'liloni. Mishtamish b'derech b'sari achuza lokav v'hu pshat lepardes hasod. And this, even at the pshat level of sod, we're already talking about people who, to understand those, that you're already operating at a high level. You have a kedusha to you, that you're already understanding. Even understanding the pshat level of sod is what he's saying. Like that's already a very high level that most of us are not there, right? V'remez midrash hasod kvar Zacharnum, you say that he himself has already talked about what does it mean remez and drash at the sod level. That's again, above and beyond us. V'soda sod hu asagas ha'inyanim elokim b'derech nevuah ruach hakodesh. How do you get to the sod of a sod level if even at the remez and the drash level are hidden from the vast majority of us? How do you ever get to the sod of the sod? He says that's already at the nevuah level. That's only a matana from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's ruach hakodesh. Will be brought b'spashtus haneshama min haguf, or that's also when we're niftar, right? That's olam haba, right? Sod, that's already what we're going to be understanding when after Mea V'Esrim. So that is this piece from the Ramaz, again giving us at least a bit of a better understanding of how the different levels operate, and what our shaykhs are is to these different levels. But I know personally, I thought that the example from Lulav is just sort of hits home, because we can really understand there's all these different levels going on at the same time.